He thought it was just another media stunt, a chance to call out a retired judge, stir the base, and score political points on camera. But when JD Vance accused Judge Frank Caprio of faking a military commendation, he wasn't just playing dirty. He was playing with fire. Because what he didn't know was that the commendation came from a man who died in the line of duty. And what he never expected was that Caprio would come out of retirement, walk into federal court, and file a $100 million lawsuit backed by classified testimony, wartime correspondence, and a sealed letter from a soldier whose name Vance should never have used. Before we show you exactly what that lawsuit revealed, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and make sure you're subscribed with the bell on, because this story doesn't just shake a courtroom, it shakes a campaign trail. Let's get into it. The federal courthouse in downtown Providence had never seen a media turnout quite like this. It was just past 9 a.m. on a brisk Tuesday morning. The marble corridors echoed with the clicks of polished shoes and the whispered exchanges of reporters trying to sound like they knew what was going on. Cameras waited outside. Inside, photographers weren't allowed, but the press gallery was at full capacity. Local outlets had shown up, of course, but so had CNN, the New York Times, even Politico. No one really knew what to expect. On the docket, Frank E. Caprio versus Senator James David Vance. Charge: defamation and reckless disregard for truth. Amount sought: $100 million. The name Frank Caprio still meant something in Rhode Island, not just as a retired municipal judge, but as a symbol of a softer kind of justice, one grounded in human dignity, not just cold law. His courtroom clips had been seen by millions online. To many, he was the face of compassion on the bench, but now he was not behind the bench. He was the plaintiff. At 9:14 a.m., the doors opened and Judge Caprio entered, slowly, but not weakly. He wore a simple navy suit, crisp white shirt, and a dark red tie. No flash, no entourage, just a single man carrying a narrow leather folder tucked under one arm. He didn't look left or right, didn't wave to the press or acknowledge the murmurs. He simply walked to the plaintiff's table and sat. A few seconds later, the side doors opened again. And that was when the circus arrived. Senator J.D. Vance swept in with a full legal team, 3 attorneys, 2 aides, a communications director, and at least one person who looked hired purely to smile in his direction. Vance had the look of someone walking into a roast, not a federal proceeding. He grinned for the press, buttoned his jacket, and said something under his breath to one of his lawyers, who smirked in return. He didn't sit right away. Instead, he surveyed the room, almost like he was scanning for cameras. And only when he was sure he'd been seen did he take his place at the defense table. That's when the murmur began, reporters whispering, "Why would Caprio go after him now? Is this real or just symbolic? What's the story here?" And then the presiding judge entered. "All rise," the bailiff's voice cut the air. The United States District Court for the District of Rhode Island is now in session, the Honorable Judge Eleanor Vance presiding. The courtroom stood. And in that instant, as the judge took her seat and the case was officially called, something shifted. The headlines had called it political theater. The blog said Caprio was being too sensitive. Vance's team seemed certain this was a PR stunt that would fold by lunch. But no one in the room, not even the judge, seemed ready for what was actually coming. Because this case wasn't about money. It was about something deeper. And in the silence between gavel strikes, everyone could feel it. A reckoning had arrived. The defense wasted no time. Vance's lead attorney, a tall man with silver hair and a voice designed for microphones, rose with an air of manufactured confidence. "Your Honor," he began, "the senator's remarks were political commentary, nothing more. We intend to show they fall clearly within protected speech." Before the judge could respond, the attorney nodded to a clerk who dimmed the lights. A projector flared to life, filling the courtroom wall with footage from a charity political fundraiser just 3 months earlier. There stood JD Vance on stage, sleeves rolled up, smiling, leaning casually against a podium as if the world existed solely for his amusement. The clip played. "You ever see that old judge in Providence?" Vance said, prompting chuckles from the audience. "The one who lets criminals walk because they cry." More laughter. "That's the kind of weakness destroying this country." The crowd roared. Caprio didn't move. Not a muscle. He just watched himself be mocked. Then came the line that had dragged Caprio into a federal courthouse despite his retirement. Vance smirked, leaned closer to the mic, and lowered his voice theatrically. "Hell, one of his compassion rulings nearly cost a federal agent his life." A ripple went through the courtroom. In the clip, the senator said the line lightly, almost playfully. The audience at the fundraiser laughed, not knowing the implication or the lie embedded in the words. But in the courtroom, nobody laughed. The projector froze on Vance's expression, smug, pleased, certain of his authority. The lights came back up. "Harmless political hyperbole," Vance's attorney said proudly. Clearly not meant as a factual statement. The judge turned to Caprio, but the retired judge remained still, hands folded, expression unreadable. The room watched him like he was holding something fragile or explosive. Vance leaned back in his chair, confident again. "See," he whispered loudly to his team, "this is a joke. He doesn't have anything." Then, slowly, Caprio stood. No theatrics, no dramatic pause, just the steady rise of a man who had spent his entire career diffusing anger with calm. "Your Honor," he said softly, "I did not bring this case because a senator mocked my career." He tapped the folder he had brought with him once, gently. "I brought it because that final sentence he spoke was not hyperbole. It referenced a real federal agent, a real man. And that man is no longer alive to defend himself." The courtroom leaned forward. Caprio's voice never rose, but his next words landed like iron. He referenced a real federal agent, a real man. And that man is no longer alive to defend himself. Senator Vance didn't just lie about me. He lied about a man who served this country honorably for 2 decades to earn applause. Vance's smirk flickered. For the first time, uncertainty cracked through. Cracked because everyone in the room, especially the senator, felt it. This wasn't the story they thought they were watching. It was the beginning of something far more dangerous. The courtroom was quiet, not courtroom quiet, but soul quiet, the kind where even breathing feels like noise. Judge Caprio stood slowly. The bailiff instinctively moved toward him, unsure whether to assist, but Caprio waved him off gently. He was older, yes, but not weak. He stepped forward and took the witness stand for the first time in his life. It was surreal. The man who had spent decades on the bench was now before it. He raised his hand for the oath, voice low but firm. "I do." Caprio adjusted the microphone. His fingers brushed the edge of his folder. He didn't open it. "Not yet. I didn't file this lawsuit," he began, "because my feelings were hurt." His voice was even, steady. "I filed it because a United States senator stood on a stage and told the country that one of my rulings nearly got a federal agent killed." He paused, not for effect, but because the next sentence mattered. "That event never happened. That case never existed. That accusation was never true." He let the words settle. Somewhere in the gallery, a reporter stopped scribbling. Another raised her camera instinctively but lowered it again. Caprio looked directly at the judge, not Vance. "What makes this different from a typical political insult?" he continued, is that the senator didn't just attack me. He used a real person, a man with a family, a history, a service record. Now Caprio opened the folder. A single sheet sat at the top, the printed still from Vance's speech, paused on the line, nearly cost a federal agent his life. He lifted the paper and showed it to the room like evidence. This was the claim, he said, quiet but direct. This was the lie. He lowered the sheet and looked back at the judge. That federal agent was a man named Daniel Raw. He worked in Providence. He died 3 years ago. Cancer. The name hit the room like a stone dropped in a still lake. No one had expected a name. No one had expected the man to be real. Caprio continued. Agent Raw never had a case in my courtroom. Not once. I had never met him. But someone I trusted recognized the name when it came up in Senator Vance's speech. He drew a slow breath. Agent Raw wrote me a letter years ago. Caprio didn't produce it. Not yet. Instead, he said, to use a dead man's name to invent a false history around him for the sake of political applause. He turned his head slightly, this time locking eyes with Vance, not with anger, but with something heavier. Senator Vance didn't just lie about me. He lied about a man who served this country honorably for 2 decades to earn applause. Vance's smirk flickered. For the first time, uncertainty cracked through. Cracked because everyone in the room, especially the senator, felt it. This wasn't the story they thought they were watching. It was the beginning of something far more dangerous. The courtroom was quiet, not courtroom quiet, but soul quiet, the kind where even breathing feels like noise. Note, the section where Caprio reads the letter is repeated later in the original text. It has been removed here to avoid redundancy. The court resumed after a short recess. When Senator Vance returned to the stand, his bravado was thinner, still present, but dulled, like armor with a dent no polish could hide. Caprio's attorney approached calmly. Senator, just to clarify, do you recall the exact ruling you were referencing in your speech? Vance crossed his arms. As I said earlier, it was a general observation, not a specific case. So, there was no actual event where Judge Caprio let someone go and a federal agent nearly died because of it. Vance hesitated. It was a narrative, a metaphor. Isn't it true, Senator, that you've told this story more than once? Yes. On campaign rallies? Yes. On live television? Yes. On podcasts? Yes. In email fundraising blasts? Vance frowned. I don't write those personally, but I approve the content. He didn't answer. The attorney stepped closer. Did you at any point attempt to verify whether such a case ever occurred? A pause. Vance swallowed. No. Did you ever request court records? No. Did you ever contact Agent Raw's family? No. Did you know Agent Raw had died years before your first speech? A long silence. No, Vance admitted. I didn't know. Then how did you come up with the story? The senator shifted in his seat. It sounded like something that could happen. Gasps from the back of the courtroom. It sounded like something that could happen. The attorney repeated, each word landing like a gavel strike. Vance's voice, once confident and booming, was thinner now. It's not uncommon in politics to illustrate points with stories. But you weren't illustrating. You accused a judge of endangering a federal agent, a real man who died with honor, and who never once appeared in Judge Caprio's courtroom. Vance looked down. The attorney paused, then turned. Your Honor, we rest for now. The judge nodded, but Caprio stood once more. He didn't ask for permission. He simply approached the senator, face calm. "You defamed me, Senator," he said quietly. "But worse. You defamed a dead man who served this country with honor. You used his name to manufacture applause. You turned service into spectacle." Vance didn't respond. Caprio nodded to the judge and stepped back. The silence was heavier now, the kind of silence that doesn't ask for sympathy, only acknowledgement. The senator's confidence was gone, and for the first time in the entire trial, he looked afraid. The judge was preparing to recess when a hand rose, hesitant but firm. It belonged to a young man seated quietly behind Vance's legal team. Late 20s, clean suit, nervous eyes. "Your Honor," he said, standing. "May I request to be heard?" Whispers erupted. The judge raised her brow. "And you are?" "Ethan Clark, former communications aide to Senator Vance." "I'm no longer under NDA." Gasps again. One of Vance's lawyers turned, whispering, "Sit down." But the judge allowed it. "Come forward, Mr. Clark." Clark took the stand. His voice trembled, but he didn't falter. "I was part of the speechwriting team for the senator during the 2024 campaign cycle. I helped write the speech in question." He glanced at Vance, then looked away. "I flagged the story about Judge Caprio the moment I read it in the draft," Clark said. "I told the senator that we had no evidence. No record of the judge ever ruling on a case involving Agent Raw. I asked him to remove it." The courtroom leaned in. What was his response? Caprio's attorney asked. Clark took a breath. He laughed and said, "Nobody will fact-check it. It's Rhode Island." A stunned silence followed. Not even the click of a reporter's keyboard broke it. The judge narrowed her eyes. "You're certain of this quote?" "I am." "Did you warn him about using a real name?" "Yes. I told him if we used Agent Raw's name, we should at least verify it. And I quote again, it'll get a laugh. That's all that matters." Caprio's expression didn't change. But Vance, he looked smaller now. His posture slumped. His lawyers looked down, no longer defending, just absorbing. Clark stepped down. As he passed the bench, he gave a small nod to Caprio, not of alliance, but of quiet respect. The damage was done, and it hadn't come from an enemy or a prosecutor or the press. It came from inside the senator's own circle. Caprio's attorney didn't waste the momentum. He rose, holding a binder marked Exhibit 7. "Your Honor, we request the court's attention to a pattern, not a single fabrication, but a documented habit of misinformation." The judge nodded. The screen behind the witness stand lit up. Slide 1, a town hall in Cincinnati, 2022. Vance on camera. "I once met a judge who said jail wasn't necessary if someone felt bad enough." Can you believe that? Caprio's lawyer, "No record exists of any such judge or comment." Slide 2, a podcast interview in early 2023. Vance, "There's a judge up in New England who let a drunk driver go with a handshake because the guy cried." Laughter from the host. But again, no case, no name, no record. Slide 3, a campaign ad. Vance's narration, "Soft judges like Caprio. They've let gangs grow under their watch. Compassion doesn't clean up streets." Caprio's lawyer paused the video. "Senator Vance built a narrative not just about my client, but about the justice system itself. A narrative made of smoke." Vance's team objected to the characterization, but weakly. The presiding judge interjected, voice crisp. "Senator, do you deny making these statements?" Vance shifted. His jaw worked. "I said a lot of things on the trail. Not all of them were literal. Do you deny fabricating these stories?" A pause. "No," he finally said, "I don't." A reporter in the gallery muttered, "Wow." Caprio didn't gloat. He didn't even look at Vance. He just sat quietly, watching truth do what anger never could. His attorney closed the binder. "Your Honor, this is not political speech. This is systematic defamation." A beat passed. The courtroom held its breath. Then the judge proceeded to closing. The courtroom had heard enough noise. So when Caprio stood, no theatrics, no raised voice, there was something piercing about the stillness he carried with him. He didn't move to the podium. He simply turned to face the judge, his voice steady and low. "Your Honor, I spent most of my life listening to stories. In my courtroom, people told me why they parked in front of hydrants, why their inspection stickers were expired, why their lives had fallen apart in ways both funny and tragic. I didn't always let them off, but I always listened." He paused. "Because I believed, still believe, that listening is where justice begins." Now he turned briefly, addressing the gallery, not to sway them, but to include them. "Senator Vance did not just lie about me. He didn't just misrepresent a ruling. He reached into a man's grave, pulled out his name, and used it to provoke laughter." He shook his head gently. "Agent Raw can't correct the record. He can't clarify what really happened. He can't ask for his dignity back. But I can." Caprio's voice was calm, but layered with something deeper, something that left even Vance staring down at the table. "Senator Vance says it was a metaphor, a joke. He says we are overreacting. But there is nothing metaphorical about the pain his words caused, not to me, and certainly not to that widow or her son." He stepped slightly forward now, posture straight despite his age. "I am not asking this court for revenge. I'm not asking for money. I am asking this court to remember that truth still matters, that facts are not flexible, and that power does not give permission to harm." He looked directly at Vance. "You could have attacked me all you wanted. I've lived a long life. I've been called worse things by better people. But you didn't stop with me." A brief silence. Then Caprio closed his folder, the same slim folder he had entered the courtroom with on day one. "You dragged a federal agent's name into the gutter for applause. And for that, I stand here not as a judge, not even as a plaintiff, but as a witness. A witness for someone who can no longer speak for himself." His final words landed like the closing of a book. "I request no special favor, only accountability." He turned back toward the judge. "Thank you, Your Honor." The courtroom was silent. Not a cough, not a phone buzz, just the weight of what had been said, hanging in the air like judgment itself. The judge gave a slow nod. "Court will recess briefly before verdict." The courtroom reconvened less than an hour later. Everyone was back in place, but no one was relaxed. Even the buzz of reporters had dulled to a tense silence. People sat upright, as if sensing that what was about to unfold had nothing to do with legal precedent and everything to do with moral weight. The presiding judge, a composed woman in her early 60s with a reputation for fairness, adjusted her glasses and began, "This court has reviewed the evidence, the testimony, and the intent behind the statements made by Senator Vance." She looked up, right at him. "We are not here to judge political views. We are here to determine whether a public figure in a position of influence knowingly fabricated claims that defamed another citizen, living or deceased, for personal or political gain. Vance shifted. The judge continued, in that determination, this court finds that the defendant's statements about Judge Caprio were not only false, but delivered with reckless disregard for the truth. This court also finds that the fabricated mention of Special Agent Daniel Raw, a man with no ties to the alleged case, constituted a grave misrepresentation with foreseeable emotional harm to his family. She folded her hands. In light of these facts, the court hereby orders the following symbolic damages. The plaintiff, Frank S. Caprio, is awarded $1 in direct compensatory damages. This is not a dismissal of harm, but a reflection of the plaintiff's stated goal, not restitution, but accountability. Public correction. Senator Vance is hereby ordered to issue a public statement acknowledging the falsehood of his claims, including direct reference to Judge Caprio and Agent Raw. Personal apology. A written apology will be delivered to the family of Agent Raw within 7 days. Retraction. All campaign materials and digital content featuring the false story are to be removed or edited with a clear disclaimer. Punitive damages. Due to the deliberate nature of the defamation and the public platform from which it was spread, this court refers the matter of punitive damages to a separate jury panel. The amount to be determined may reach up to $100 million in accordance with state and federal precedent. Gasps. Flashbulbs burst from the press gallery. Reporters rushed to file breaking headlines. Caprio didn't flinch, but Vance looked pale now, his smirk gone, replaced by the unmistakable cold flush of consequences. The judge's final words were measured. Court is adjourned. The gavel struck, and just like that, the silence returned, heavier than before. The story broke faster than the court could clear the room. Within minutes, every major news outlet, CNN, Fox, the New York Times, the Daily Wire, flashed the headline, Senator Vance ordered to apologize for defaming fallen federal agent, $100 million punitive damages. Jury trial set. The video of Caprio reading Agent Raw's letter had gone viral, clipped, shared, subtitled. Millions watched him say, "Justice is not always punishment. Sometimes justice is giving someone a chance to breathe." It wasn't political anymore. It was human. Online reaction exploded. Social media erupted. Former colleagues of Agent Raw posted tributes. Federal agents from across the country reshared the story. A trending hashtag emerged, #HonorRaw. TikTok flooded with reaction videos, some young people in tears, others stunned by the dignity Caprio showed throughout the trial. One teenager, apparently Raw's son's classmate, posted, "He never talked about his dad at school. Now I know why. He was protecting something sacred." Political consequences followed swiftly. Within 48 hours, 3 bipartisan senators issued public statements condemning Vance's conduct. Multiple donors to Vance's re-election campaign announced a pause in contributions. A quiet Senate ethics inquiry was reportedly initiated behind closed doors. Even conservative media figures, those who had previously defended Vance, struggled to spin it. One commentator said bluntly, "Look, I don't care how tough on crime you want to sound. You don't lie about a dead federal agent for applause." Caprio's silence was notable. While the world reacted, he disappeared from the spotlight. No press conference, no victory lap, no media appearances. The only image that circulated was a single blurry photo, Caprio alone, standing in front of a small granite headstone in a quiet Rhode Island cemetery, Agent Daniel Raw's grave. Caprio wasn't wearing robes. He wasn't even wearing a suit, just a wool coat. One hand in his pocket, the other holding a small folded paper. He placed it gently at the foot of the grave, then walked away. No camera followed. No one asked what the note said, and Caprio never told. Because sometimes the deepest form of justice isn't the one the world watches. It's the one no one sees. Do you think Senator Vance deserves the consequences of using a dead federal agent's name for political gain? Should judges be protected from false political attacks the same way everyday citizens are? And if you were in Judge Caprio's position, would you have stayed silent or stood up, knowing the fight would be public, painful, and personal? Let me know what you would have done in the comments. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that truth still has weight in this world, then hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss one of our daily courtroom stories. Share this video with someone who believes integrity still matters. Your next stories are already on screen. Go ahead, watch them now, and I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place, with a brand new story.